bit where I sit there with a senator, sit there with me at a large table, and talking about what should we do. Should we give them $2 billion or whatever? I forgot how much money. It was years ago. But it was a politic game. I work with the Colombians down there. I work with the police. Colombia's a breathtaking, beautiful country, and so on. But the corruption is just a way of life there. Like I said, they love our American dream, but they don't like our American culture in a way. And so I did experience that. There's some great people out there, Gary. But
well, it seems like the drug problem is really escalated. I mean,
yes, it has.
They've been recently finding these tunnels big enough to drive a car through, coming into our country. That's scary. Absolutely.
I tell you what, Gary, the statistics show when you talk about the wall, when the wall was being built in certain locations, there was a flood of narcotics into the country. They were bringing so much dope in this country, and they were storing it up in large quantities in houses, whether it's in Chicago, New York, anywhere along the border, because they knew that wall was going to slow them down, and it did slow them down. That's why when you see these large seizures out there by Customs or Homeland Security or D.E.A. or FBI, it's because there's a large supply that's in this country. And it's amazing when people say, I cannot believe this country is consuming that much drugs. You bet we are. You bet we are. Our young people today, it used to be alcohol, marijuana, and now, they're making money. They're having great jobs. There's a lot of income in this country. But then, of course, when you have that, they're going to spend it on other things. And those other things turn out to be something that they shouldn't be buying at all. But who's making the money?
And has it gotten worse in the last couple of years, or is that my imagination?
Yes, it has. No. I sit down every Thursday morning at a coffee shop, and there's like 5 of us, D.E.A., FBI, U.S. Marshals when he's there, IRS, and so on. And we're talking about years and years' experience. And, what we see today, it is worse, and it's going to continue to get worse. You have 2 classes of 2 different cultures in our country. You have the people that will still grab that flag and hug and kiss that flag, and you got another half of this country, they don't care about the flag. They don't care about anything except themselves or what can the government give me. Okay? Gary, I had a chance to visit, very blessed, of countries like Rome, Athens, Greece, and Israel. I visited Israel a couple of times, and when you read the book about Israel, how many times it's been destroyed, or Rome, it's just incredible to see these cities. Athens, they were destroyed within. There was no country, no one could defeat them at all. They were powerful within inside. And when they were founded on a strong belief. It kind of reminds you of this country, a way of freedom, okay? But today, our countries begin to start decaying inside with our morals and values and how you view of certain, acts are committed against children, and dope. And the court system has become very lenient. Marriages, advertised on a billboard. It's okay to cheat on your spouse, okay? It's okay not to believe in God. Just believe what you want to believe. Do what you want to do, And you're talking to a guy. You said you're 68, Gary?
I'm 65.
I'm 65, buddy. I know about the military in Vietnam. I had a draft card. I didn't go. The reason why I didn't go, because my daddy back on Plum Creek there in Taylorsville didn't want me to go because the men that were coming out there, they didn't have no support from the American government, from the people back home. And a lot of these guys came back, were friends of my dad, and they told my dad they had no idea what they were fighting for. I tell you what, in this one book, when it first came out, I had someone that wanted to talk to me, Gary. And I said, okay, let me talk to him. I got his phone number. I called the guy. And the guy was a Vietnam veteran. And he told me, he said, when I read your book, I know you're telling the truth. He said, you lost the war, just like we did. What he's talking about, Gary, we lost the war on drugs. There was no such thing as war on drugs. I know. Because if there were, Gary, we can finish it a long time ago. We're the most powerful country in the world, and we cannot stop the drugs coming in this country. We have the technology. I've seen it 20-something years ago, we can destroy the poppy fields so easily. We can shut down everything. We can shut down the border. We can make the governments of smuggling the narcotics, Venezuela or Colombia or Peru or Bolivia, we can do it, but we won't.
And that's the scary part. And
yes, it is.
And it just seems like younger people, when I talk to them, okay, they have this attitude, well, there's nothing wrong with it. And again, I've seen family members start out with marijuana, then go into meth, then go into other stuff, and then into heroin and stuff like that. It scares me.
Right.
It really scares me.
It should scare you. Because I tell you what, when it starts collapsing, if it does collapse, and when it does, I know we don't talk too much about it, but I do. That first book, The Path of the Devil, Camino Diablo, I didn't want to write that book, and it is about the path of the devil. Actually, it's a mountain out in Yuma, Arizona. The Spanish priest gave the name Camino Diablo from Spain, and later on, I was encouraged by 2 PIs to write this book. It was just my job. I didn't want to write stories. I just got out of D.E.A, and all I want to do is get into PI business, and I started doing hospice. Didn't want to do hospice, but my gosh, when I first walked into the facility and seeing so many people by themselves, especially older people and some World War II veterans in Vietnam, I ended up falling in love with a lot of those guys. They're no longer here today. And my relationship with my belief, with my faith, it was a struggle throughout working narcotics because I've seen the filth. You talk about filth. I mean, I've seen it. People say, "You seen the devil?" You bet I've seen the devil. Looked him right in the eyes of many, many people. And you have too, Gary. When you look at your son that's on methamphetamine, every day is a struggle for his life. When you look at his eyes, especially when he's on meth, you don't see your son anymore. You really don't. What you see is the eyes of the devil. You really do, the sin of the world.
What you see is somebody who's not even there anymore. Not the same kid that you remember when he was a child. They turn into something else, and after a while, they're not even the same person. And you might still love them more than anything on the earth, but you just don't want to be near them. You don't want nothing to do with them because you're so disgusted. Because they're not the same person anymore. They don't think the same way. They don't have no values anymore. They would steal from you. They would take your gold tooth if you were sleeping if they could. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Oh no, Kentucky, my home state, has a really bad problem like most states do, and I have people in my family they're addicted to methamphetamine, and it's really sad. And fentanyl, they don't talk about fentanyl. A few years back, it killed over 68,000 people, but yet we're so concerned about, other things in life, and we don't talk about fentanyl. But that methamphetamine, my brother was going to call in and ask a question. He was going to ask you. He said, here I am, a methamphetamine, and my brother's a D.E.A retired agent. I mean, what happened to him and what happened to me? He still struggles. He fights every moment in his life, just like my nieces and people I deal with. When I deal with anyone, for example, your brother or my brother, and if they're on meth or whatever, I am very forceful. I do not cut corners for them. I do not play around, much as I love them. Your son is a person that, like many other sons and daughters out there, some do go on and die. But if they take a scalpel to your son's body and take a look inside, you're going to see ulcers, sores. It's eating away his body. They had a movie called Breaking Bad out here or whatever. And I get really upset when people say, wow, DEA does all that and his meth. That's the problem with Hollywood. Meth would destroy your family. I tell you what, you give me a choice right now, Gary, or your audience out there. If you tell me which is the worst drug, marijuana, heroin, or methamphetamine, it's methamphetamine. Okay? Truly, truly addictive. It scares you. I tell you what, heroin is passive when they're stoned, when they're high. Marijuana, same thing. But the problem is with all these drugs, if you're going down a highway here doing 95 miles an hour and under the influence of alcohol, what's the difference of meth? Actually, meth is more of a stimulant. It's rage. Okay, it's craziness.
Yeah,
okay?
You said that right.
Marijuana's passive, like heroin.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because with somebody on meth, besides losing their teeth, having sores all over their body, being stoned all the time, stealing because they need the meth, so they need money. Here he is, 40 years old, and the longest he ever held a job was like 2 months. Did that tell you what meth does to people?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I experienced it in my own family here. I'm a drug agent, D.E.A, and I've seen it with all my life. And that's why I mentioned to you about prostitutes and homeless. I'd rather deal with them instead of what we call the civilized individual out there on the streets. I know how to deal with them because I worked with them too long. And I keep my distance when they get so close, but at the same time, we're all, even my brother, your son, my nieces, throughout the world, we all belong to this wonderful life that God has given us. But it is a struggle. And I think the book, The Path of the Devil, Fighting My Greatest Enemy, those two books, that Fighting My Greatest Enemy, I'm not trying to push anything on anybody out there, but that book, Fighting My Greatest Enemy, by two PIs and they said I can mention their name, if that's okay with you, Jeff Peterson and Randy Turkison. And Diana DeMille, she's our marketing, and she's really experiencing something that I don't think she ever experienced in her life. She's a PhD in mathematics, and she's taken on this book about 2 years ago, and no one else would not do it because, we can document about 35 people that were killed, and that's normal, believe it or not. And the book is doing very well. I'm trying to market myself, but it seemed like everybody wants to do it, but they want to take the book, and I don't want to change anything. It is a true story. Both of them are. I had to send it back to D.E.A headquarters in D.C., and writing a book on a true story, they didn't like it. They didn't approve the book, or they didn't disapprove, but they went ahead and said, take some things out of it, and we'll let you go ahead and print it, and or publish it, which we did, and then I got some good results on that, so I finished my last book. It's called Fighting My Greatest Enemy, myself. And behind that individual that's on the cover, that's me, but he's got a mask on. And behind that, there's a hill. And on that hill, there's a cross, and there's a dove. People say, wow, Larry Hardren, you're acting really religious. I'm not religious. I experience it just like your son, watching him, watching many, many families been destroyed by their own children. I've seen a lot of stuff out there, you name it, when it comes to narcotics. Gary, most of your crime out there, about 99%, maybe more, is related with drugs, alcohol or drugs, because people do not act like that in a normal, just like you or me, in a normal setting. We might think of crazy stuff, but we're not going to act it out. But when a person goes under the influence of anything, he loses control of his mind. And I found out there's two ways that life can work on you. It can work on your spirit. Yes, sir, Gary. We all have a spirit. I think we all do. Even certain, maybe animals or whatever, but I don't worry about that. But is there evil? Yes, it is. And evil works on the mind, works on the thoughts, mostly over the past and the present, and the future. But present, we stay focused on what's happening to us right now. And I've seen it, Gary. And I just don't know what's going to happen with our country. The whole world is going through a change. I spent a lot of time in Europe. I'm trying to promote the books over there. I want the people to read both books. I want them to see the true story, of corruption. I fall back to the corruption. I identified corruption, and it always will be corruption, whether it's in politics or with cops or law enforcement. You can't take money away from it, and so I guess what I'm trying to tell you is that both books. I hope you get a chance. If you haven't read it, Gary, take a look at it, and I hope somehow the truth will get out there. I am doing an audio right now, which with my with my perfect English and where I'm from, it's kind of hard to do. But anyway.
Well, I thought you had